to me, the most basic thing about this game was it was a college football-like result. Win a game you're supposed to win, put it away, and move on.
Well, I think the number one thing coming into this game that we kept talking about was with Khalil Mack missing the game, and he had been a guy that because of the team he was playing on, I don't think people were locked in. He had been playing awesome. He had been playing like an all-pro, and he was headed to be an all-pro, right? He had six sacks, which was high up there. I think he was third in the league. He was dominating. Him missing that game, all of a sudden you went, well, shouldn't the Niners have more impact players than the Bears?
Hey, we're glad you're watching this video. Subscribe to this channel and give the video a like. We appreciate it.
Yeah, 55% of you are watching this and are not subscribed, so make sure you do that, as well as do our podcast below in the description.
We're sponsored by Tito's Handmade Vodka.
#1 vodka in America. And I think you saw today the combination of two things. They're impact players, and listen, Elijah Mitchell in their wins has just been an impact player. He's rushing for 100-plus yards. I don't even know what his final stat line, but he was fucking awesome. Obviously, I know he had more than 100 yards. He had 90 yards in the fourth quarter.
Dubal said that Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You're about to give me a good number.
And Dubal said that was the most yards in the fourth quarter for a 49er since Frank Gore in 2010.
Wow.
So, I think their impact players made plays, and their head coach, and the Bears were missing their impact player and their head coach. Now, you can make fun of my guy Matt Nagy all you want, but the Tabor guy he actually has pretty good hair, a little blonde hair. That's not their head coach. Like it's not an ideal situation to be in. Like they were at a disadvantage with their best, and the Niners took advantage of it. That's what they had to do to win.
Yeah. Yeah. Of the first 100-yard rusher in back-to-back games for the Niners since 2018, and that was Matt. I always screw it up.
What year?
Breda. I never have gotten it right. I didn't get it right when he was playing every day for the Niners, so sorry. But 2018, first time they had a 100-yard rusher in back-to-back games. Same guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you know what's crazy about the game? There was one thing as the Niners trailed at halftime and scrambled to get the ball into scoring position, right? And there was the decision to make. Do they use the timeout or not? Because if they don't use it, they're going to give it back to the Bears. And it cost them, Breda, and it cost them a lot of time. They snapped the ball with 30 seconds after declining to use the timeout after the Ayuk catch. And so it cost them about a minute. No, it cost them 30 seconds. Sorry, 33 seconds. Ayuk catches the ball on 3rd and 4 with 1:03 left in the first half. Okay. Yeah. They don't use a timeout. Then they snap at 30 seconds. So 33 seconds come off the clock because they let the play clock come down.
Which was probably the right move because you couldn't risk an incompletion from Jimmy and then punting it, back. And I think who knows if this guy knows what he's talking about.
What do you mean?
The commenters with the name.
Oh, I don't know. Okay, but I'll trust him because I'm 50-50 on it. I just throw one out. So they get down and score. Like they hit the big play. They get down and score. And at that point, even though it felt like they were lacking, and they were 7.5, almost 7.6 yards per play, 2 yards better than Chicago at 5.4. Like they were in some ways, I thought, better than Chicago. It's just they couldn't get a stop. And the crazy thing was they weren't getting stopped. They didn't get stopped at all. Mitch Wishnowsky didn't punt. Like the only drive that didn't end in points was the first drive of the game when they missed a field goal. The Niners scored on every drive. And yet it felt like they just weren't going to be able to fully put it together. And you know what? There was a point, I don't know what you were thinking. Probably around halftime, I'm thinking they can't stop him. Fields is running all over the place, kind of doing what he wants, it felt like. The numbers did not bear it out, but at halftime it felt like they weren't making plays behind the line of scrimmage. But it was hard to be mad at the defense because I'm just thinking if you're going to score like 9 points, you're just not going to win the game. If you're going to score 14 points. Now, part of that was there just weren't possessions, right? There just were not possessions in the game.
Well, when they showed the clock, I think at one point in time at the end of the first half, it was 9-19, and obviously some seconds. So it was just like it didn't feel like the 49ers had the ball that long, right? Like they would just
the Bears were plus 9. That's right. Time of possession.
So it was just a huge advantage. In the second half, that flipped. The Niners kept the ball. Now, I will say this, and I know he's taken some heat as statistically the worst quarterback. I guess Zach Wilson was. He was the second worst, depending on what you looked at, Justin Fields. I thought he was pretty good today. Just looked calm, collected, made some plays. Obviously, his touchdown. Like, you were playing a rookie quarterback who was playing, like, if you just said that was Justin Fields in a year, like, to me, like, that was a pretty impressive game from him. I thought he was pretty accurate. I thought obviously the one play he made where he scrambled around, scrambled a couple times. I think Greg Olson actually is really good on TV.
Yes.
And he said, I thought he was much more decisive today when he would scramble instead of like, should I run or should I throw? Because I don't want to be known as a run. He just took off a couple times. I don't think people quite realize this. Lamar, Kyler, two fastest players, like low 4.3 guys. Fields is the third fastest quarterback. Like, he is hauling ass. So it's not just, he runs again. Like, he should run. He is fast. He's 4.4. I mean, that's hauling ass. I don't know if it's hard to tell with context of Twitter, but Marcus Thompson was like, there was one scramble where it's just Bosa and him, just Ohio State on Ohio State crime. And it's like, God, he made Bosa look really slow. Well, yeah, because Nick Bosa is probably like a 4.7 guy, which is hauling ass for a defensive end. And that guy's a 4.4 guy. So when you talk about these numbers, there's a big difference always between 4.4 and 4.6, even though if you and I were just sitting there at the end of the race and just watched a 4.4 guy and a 4.6 guy, it doesn't look that much different in real time. But when one fucking guy has the ball rounding the corner and 97's chasing him, it makes Nick look slow. But Nick's not actually slow. It's just Fields is incredibly fast. I thought Fields, and even Herbert had a couple moments today, Justin's long-lost cousin. Those two guys are really, really talented. I was impressed.
And Fields is he's not just fast, he's a really talented runner and he's elusive. So he gets angles and then it's really impossible. It's a game, we always say, I think the cliche, it's a game of inches, means if you are just a hair off by a degree or two, he's gone. And that touchdown he scored on just goes down as, just put it in the bucket where you put all the greatest plays in NFL history. I'm not saying it's the greatest, the top 10 or whatever.
It was a remarkable play.
Yeah, if there's a VIP room of the greatest plays in NFL history, that play gets into the VIP room. Let's take a moment to tell you to go to overland.com/ham and get in some well-made, beautifully crafted, and very comfortable slippers.
And do you guys want to win money like Guy and I have been doing for about the last month? Just go to mybookie.ag, promo code HAM and the number 1. Get your gamble on. Like, I know this. I don't know what the reaction was on social media or every single person on their couch on that. To me, that's a play where you tip your hat. Like, that's just...
Yeah, it just happened to be a back-breaking play.
But it wasn't really. It tied the game, right?
Yeah, well, it just felt like it was going to, that could be it.
I still felt pretty good because the Niners were playing well. Like, it took a remarkable play for them to score. And from a remarkable player who, to me... I haven't watched every single snap. That had to be his most complete game as a pro. I know he has one interception, but at the end of the game, he had no choice.
Yeah, that one didn't count.
I thought he was really good today.
I agree. It wasn't even a game you need to look at the numbers. I'll tell you what they were.
Well, it was 19 to 27,
175, a touchdown, a pick, but 10 carries for 103 yards and a touchdown.
His running was awesome.
It just stresses the defense. And they still got to him. Like, in the end, they still got to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bosa got 2 sacks. As the game wore on, because I thought early in the game, like, they are just missing everything they've had to. The domino effect of no Kinlaw is just going to show itself today. That's what it felt like early on. And, they pulled it together.
Well, one thing they started doing, and it's just, of course, when you score points. Now, if they were playing the Rams, if they were playing a healthy Kyler Murray, and they can match you, right, with scoring touchdowns, it does get more difficult for a rookie quarterback to keep leading touchdown drives. So once the second half, started, that first half, they had 9 points, right? All field goals. Well, once you start scoring touchdowns and then you take the lead against a rookie quarterback, you gain the advantage, right? It felt like the Niners in the first half were kind of getting throttled. If it was a boxing match, like, they're getting hit, they're not landing that many punches. Even the punches they land are not doing that much. And in the second half, they constantly had him against the ropes. And they never truly knocked him out, but at the end of the game, it was an easy, resounding, every judge gave the Niners the victory. And it's just something that I think every single person has been asking for. Just win the game and have a stretch of football, and they had to have it at the most important time, losing out of halftime on the road, where it's like, are you going to lose to a team that Nagy and Khalil Mack are not even? Did they show Khalil on TV? I didn't see him.
I didn't see him,
and I wouldn't even blame him if he didn't show. And Nagy obviously is not there. You're going to lose to a team that doesn't have their head coach, And no, they didn't. They flipped the switch and they started kicking ass and taking names. They just kind of overpowered them. Their style, right? Running the ball to the edges, knocking it down your throat. Debo making plays fucking all over the place. Like you said, defensively, making some key spots. They tackled pretty well today for the most part. Just played well in the second half with their back against the wall when it would have been, at one point in time, everyone listening to this had to think, like, the 49ers are going to lose to the Bears.
Yeah, because the place was rocking early. Like after the missed field goal to start the game, you kind of looked around like, did the Bears – I'm not saying that they're better off without Matt Nagy. I'm just saying sometimes when something changes and a team is struggling, maybe there's an inspiration that comes from it. Not that I don't think they've been – I think they've been bad. I haven't watched them and thought they've been uninspired necessarily this year. But
did you notice in the second half, like when Juszczyk caught a ball, you heard a lot of Jews? Like, the Niners sneaky? I bet there were a lot of Niner fans there today.
There were. I mean, you saw when they missed the extra point, there were a lot of Niner fans in the background when they didn't tie the game. And I thought, God, if the Niners kick a field goal, that point's going to be big because now it's going to be 4 and we'll get a push. Yeah, I mean, the Niners did not play a perfect game. They had a couple key penalties. Armstead jumped on 3rd and 9 and they got the first down. And then they eventually they took the lead on that drive. And then the Josh Norman holding penalty on a 3rd and 8.
I hate defensive holdings and automatic first down. So stupid.
I know. But so there was, and then they get we'll talk about Debo, but the Niners get the ball back down 16-9. They get the Ayuk screen, the block in the back from Juszczyk, pushing back. Charlie Warner, nothing. 3rd and 20. And then Debo goes for 84 yards.
I think it was hard for anyone to see the second half coming just because if the Niners were a 4-2 team coming in this game, you're like, okay, they'll flip a switch. They'll be fine. There have been no switches to flip for a month, right? It's like, are they just a bad team? I just kept thinking, are they really just a bad team? They can't be this bad. Like, you can't still have all these functional players. I mean, Trent's out there, Bosa's out there, Debo's out there, Ayuk's out there, Fred Warner's out there. You can't have all these players out there and just be this terrible. And it turns out they're just not. But it did cross my mind, maybe they're not very good. Right? Because I did not. How could you? Down at halftime, 16-9 on the road, when they've lost 4 straight games, it was hard to be optimistic.
No,
I did not. One, from a gambling standpoint, I thought no chance. Even if they pull this thing out, they're going to win by like 1 point.
Yeah, it just, you hadn't seen, sometimes you see teams that get behind and then come back and win. And now, that Colts game, I think, was a game where you thought, all right, there were times in that Colts game where they were down, and I thought they'll find a way. They didn't. And then once you see that happen enough times, you stop believing that it'll happen. Now, part of it is they played the Bears today, right? They played the Bears. They didn't play the Colts, who almost beat the Titans, went to overtime with them. They played the Bears. But that's fine. That's why when you look at what's coming up, you go, okay, that game helps. That game helps. It counts the same in the standings. And this one helped. You had to it was a had to have it game. They got it. Now, we'll discuss today and over the next week, what did it mean? But you had to have the game. You just had to have the game.